Hello and welcome. This is going to be my personal story about how I accidentally stopped smoking. Now, I say accidentally because it was. I wasn't intending to stop smoking, I was intending to cut down. And I'll explain more about that as the time comes to it. Now, as I have actually stopped smoking even though I still have my packet of cigarettes in front of me, which seems strange to some people. They say, why would you tempt yourself with cigarettes in front of yourself? And it's because I don't want to smoke it anymore. And it's only because I'd rather smoke this. Now, this is a big mod, and I'll tell you more about this in a little bit. But first, I want to tell you how I started this and how I got into what we call vaping. Now, I started out with one of these. It's a average run-of-the-mill starter kit, and you can buy them from most shops. I know that at the shop that I work at, we actually sell these, and it's actually very cheap. I mean, I picked this one up. Well, this was quite top of the range at the time, and I picked this up for probably about £10, which isn't a lot of money considering that an average 20 packet of cigarettes is £10 now. And I actually bought this device because I wanted to cut down smoking, not quit. Now, this device, it isn't the best, and I say that because I didn't enjoy smoking this. I actually, as I said, only used it to cut myself down from smoking. And I did that because I was craving cigarettes even just in my work period. I mean, I'd want to take my breaks early because I was craving a cigarette that much. And I was smoking a lot. And this device, it did help me cut down, but I didn't enjoy smoking it. And I found that I was replacing my cigarette with this, and I was still craving cigarettes a lot, which wasn't what I wanted. I actually wanted the cravings to stop, and I don't mean altogether because I actually enjoyed smoking, and I think that's why I didn't want to give up because I actually enjoyed it. Now, if you are looking to quit because you don't enjoy smoking, then I believe that it possibly could even be easier for you. I mean, I was smoking for near on 12 years and I quit accidentally. So it can be done, and that's living proof of it. Now, I moved on from that mod, that starter kit, which I didn't enjoy to be honest, to a small box mod, which I actually don't have anymore. It is somewhere, but I cannot find it. Now, the box mod which I moved on to was roughly a little bit smaller than this one. Now, this is one which I got later on, and I'll explain about this one soon. But it was a little bit smaller than this one. And I actually started with a very small tank. This is the Kangatech Subtank Nano. And when I started smoking this one, I found it a lot more enjoyable. I actually started to prefer it over my cigarettes. Now, this device that I'm talking about actually didn't weigh too much. It was probably slightly heavier than a 20 packet of cigarettes and a lighter, but probably no heavier than my tin with everything in it. I mean, this is a metal tin, and it was smaller than this as well, to be honest, in the pocket. So it wasn't a hassle to carry around, but at the time I was carrying my cigarettes and my vaporizer around, and I was still smoking. I then started doing research and I actually started watching videos, and it became an interest of mine to find out about these things. And I then moved on to this. This is the Inakin iTaste 134 Mini. And yes, it was a very good device, but it's very long, especially when you have an atomizer screwed onto it. I went out and actually bought a bigger version of that Kangatech sub-tank which I just showed you, which is this one. And with a drip tip on it, it is actually quite a bit longer. And obviously it looks a bit silly there because the mod is actually wider than the device. But I smoked it nevertheless, there's with the drip tip. And I enjoyed it a lot, a very lot. And this uses a removable battery, which I'd never had before, so I had to go out and buy a charger as well. And this uses a very small battery. This is a good named battery, which is FS. I use them in all of my devices now, but at the time I didn't. And although it uses a very small battery, it is actually a very big device. Now this didn't stop me smoking either, and we'll get onto that with my next device. But I actually really started to enjoy this vaping at this point when I had this device, and I actually still quite like this device. It is a bit strange with that tank on it, I do admit, but with a slightly smaller tank, I actually like the look of it. So this is it with a different tank. This is the Aspire Atlantis. And I do actually quite like the look of it. It is a big mod, I mean, but once it's in your hand, it isn't too bad. Very slim, you can get your hand right the way around it. Now let's move on. I actually went out and bought the Aspire Atlantis, the one that I just showed you. And I love this tank. It is brilliant. It's very, very flavourful, especially compared to the Kangatech sub-tanks. I do like Kangatech products and they are very, very good. But I had leaking issues with both of them. And that's something which I didn't want to deal with, especially when, you know, you're keeping bits of towel around just so then you can stop them from leaking, or at least wipe up where they have leaked. The Aspire Atlantis actually changed all of this, and the flavour was brilliant. Now, I actually went back from this one, and went back to my smaller mod, my smaller box mod, and was using this. And the reason why I did that was because this is actually kind of awkward, and when you do have it in your pocket, because it is very tall, I ended up unscrewing my atomizer every time I wanted to put it in my pocket. And that wasn't really what I wanted. So I screwed it onto the small box mod, and it is quite a small tank, and I enjoyed it. I used it a lot. After this, I then started buying my big box mod, which I showed you a minute ago, and I started using it all the time, basically. I accidentally just stopped smoking. And the reason for this is very strange, but I was sat at my desk like I am now, and I play a lot of computer games. And rather than picking up a cigarette out of a packet and lighting it, I was finding that I actually enjoyed smoking this more. And it is strange, but when it's there and it's ready for you, and you know that you don't have to mess about going outside to have a smoke or anything like that when you're out and about, and that you can just pick it up and smoke with it, it's completely different. It makes a lot of difference. Now, as I said, I actually stopped accidentally, and it's because I actually enjoyed smoking this more than my cigarettes. And this box mod, I did a lot of research to find one which I thought that I'd enjoy. And it became more of a hobby for me at this point. This uses two 18650 batteries, and you don't want to know what one of them is. It's about that size. It is a high drain LiPo battery, and it uses two of them. I've just taken its sleeve off it, and I'll show you inside. There you go, 18650 batteries. I still actually use this box mod, and I actually still use this tank. These are a pair which I use quite often, but I only use them when I'm sat at my desk because it's so big. I didn't want to carry it around a lot. I mean, this is the size of a 50-gram packet of tobacco, and it's not much smaller. And when a 50-gram packet of tobacco is full, you obviously can't fold it down and roll it up as much. So it is quite a bit bigger than a packet of cigarettes. I mean, here's a packet of cigarettes. So it is quite a bit bigger. So this mod is actually the Sigelli 150 watt. Now, I bought this because I did a lot of research on it and I heard a lot of good things about it. And it is a very, very good device. It is big, but it is very, very good. And the batteries last a long time because there's two of them. It doesn't drain very fast. And I do like it with a mod like this on it. I think it looks very good. And you also get the protective sleeve for it included in when you buy it. But this device was too big. My other device wasn't sub-ohm, which is a coil which is run inside of this tank. And I didn't want to go backwards to that old mod. Obviously I couldn't because of this tank, which I very much enjoyed. So I ended up buying another mod, which I showed you earlier. I was using it as a comparison. I just screw this this tank onto the mod, and I bought this. Now this is the best thing that I have bought, and here is where I completely just forgot about smoking, and I don't think I will return. I much prefer to smoke this than I do to have a cigarette. So I started off with this, and I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the taste, the flavours, and everything that came off it. At the moment I am smoking this on 51.9 watts, which a lot of people will think that's very, very high, and it is. At the start I was probably smoking it on about 30 watts, which if I take it down to that now, you'll see it doesn't produce half as much smoke. And also, these air holes, I didn't have them fully open at the start, so I'll close them off a bit. We'll see now. A lot tighter, and you don't get as much vapour. It's much more like smoking a cigarette. Now, what do I mean by tighter? I mean that the vapour doesn't go into your lungs as easy. You actually have to suck on the device to make it work. Now, what I've done is I've opened up the air holes again, and as you can see, and I'll turn the power back up because that's how I enjoy smoking it now. And that came gradually. I weaned myself off the cigarettes unintentionally. I was just picking up this device all of the time, and I haven't touched a cigarette since I've owned this device. And I feel a lot better for it. It's much, much better. And I'll show you another device which I've also enjoyed smoking as well. Now this is the Smok TFV4, which is a very, very good device. I actually don't use it anymore because I've found a better one, or what I consider better. I haven't used this device in quite a while, so it does actually have a very high strength nicotine liquid inside of it, so I'm not going to vape on it, otherwise I will start coughing. And the reason why I haven't used it is because I have found this better device, the UL Crown, which we'll get onto in a minute. Now, I actually bought this device because I heard a lot of good reviews on it. Now, I wanted to blow out a lot of vapour, and I class that more as the hobby side of it rather than the quitting smoking side of it. And I enjoyed this because it did. However, it does have a flaw and it does have a drawback. The reason why I've got it stuck onto this mod, the Skelly 150 watt, instead of my smaller mod, is because this can handle a lot higher wattage. And the reason why I wanted a high wattage through it is because it doesn't actually work on a small wattage. I don't know 100% what the coil is rated at between the wattages, but I know that it is a lot higher than what that can cope with. So moving on, I did enjoy that mod and it was good. However, I then found out that there was a better mod, or one which was considered better by a lot of people, and that was the UL Crown. Now this tank I think is the best purchase I have made, along with this device, and these two I use all the time together. This has something called a stainless steel coil inside of it, and it doesn't use what is in this, which is a chemical wire. Now the differences are slight, but what you need to know is that this one you cannot use in temperature control, and I'll get onto temperature control in a moment. This is a stainless steel coil, and what you can do is smoke it in temperature control, but it also gives you a lot better flavour. Now this isn't in temperature control right now, this is in normal wattage mode. But what temperature control does, it stops you from getting a very, very hot vape. And what I mean by that is, when you push the button, it's firing all of the time at that wattage, whatever you've got it set at. So right now I've got it set at 54 watts. So as it starts to produce the vapour at 54 watts, all it is doing is getting hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter, and that doesn't stop. So at the moment that's how I am smoking it. However, I can put it into something called stainless steel temperature mode, which you can see there. Get the camera to focus. There you go. It's actually set at 280 degrees Celsius, which is quite hot. Now I didn't start at that. Again, this is all progressive for how I like it now. But what it does is it stops it from getting over that temperature and keeps it within that temperature range. So it'll gradually build until it gets to that temperature, and then it evens off and just carries on at that temperature and lowers the wattage and the voltage going through the coil, so then it doesn't become very hot. Okay then, I'm going to try and demonstrate this for you. And how I'm going to do it is I'm going to put it right next to the microphone, so then you can hear it ramp up and then smooth off. There we go, so you could hear it actually quite loud at the start, and then it smooths it off and brings the wattage down, so then it isn't vaping at a very hot temperature and just ramping up all the time. This creates a very smooth vape and very enjoyable. This is how I got into like temperature control vaping, and I do use nickel and titanium, the other two temperature control coils that you can use, but stainless steel is one of the very good ones, because you can actually smoke it in the power mode. Power mode is the thing which all of my other devices that I've shown you actually use. So they use variable wattage, and one of them used variable voltage, which was this one. And the reason why they do that is so then you can change the strength which you want to use, and also how much vape you want to produce. Now this is only a very brief step over everything that I know and what the mods can do and the risks which you take by using it. Sub-ohm vaping, which is the resistance of the coil, that's the ohms, can be dangerous, and you would have to look up the risks of using that. But on the whole, it is very, very good, and it has stopped me from smoking. So I know what some of you are thinking. Some of you will be thinking that I haven't actually quit smoking, I have just replaced it with smoking this, which is true in some respects, but I don't crave it as much. I don't think, right, I've got to go outside and have some of this. I don't feel the need to smoke anymore. When I'm at work, I don't want to go for my break early. I can push it on, and now I can also go home early if I don't have a break. Whereas before I couldn't, all I was thinking about was having a cigarette and my next one. But with replacing smoking with this, I'm also not getting all the chemicals which are involved with smoking, like the tar and all things like that. And not to mention the risk of fire. I mean, you hear about a lot of buildings burning down because of cigarettes. I mean, I've never caused a fire through having a cigarette. I've always made sure that it's been put out properly and obviously disposed in my ashtray, which I still have. But that is one of the things which I really like about it. Again, I mean, it was accidental that I started this instead of smoking, but I'd much rather have this inside of my body rather than all the tar and all the rubbish that they put into cigarettes. Now, it isn't just the devices and the tanks which makes vaping good. It's also the liquids. Now, this is one of my first liquids, and I originally started on 8 milligrams. I don't know if you can see that, because that was strong enough. Now, I had been smoking a lot, as I said, but the 18s was very, very harsh, and they actually started to hurt my throat after a while of smoking them. So I started on 8 milligrams, which is quite low to begin with, and that's because I actually enjoyed the 8 milligrams. I slowly started cutting that down and trying different manufacturers of liquids. So I started buying all different ones, like this is a banana flavoured one, whereas that original one which I just showed you was spearmint because I smoked menthols. But then I found liquids which I really enjoyed, and this came around the time when I started stopping smoking, and I found something called vampire vape. Now this is a liquid which I do enjoy, and I still enjoy it, but not as much as some of my new ones which I have found. And they do some very good flavours, like this is a strawberry milkshake, and there's also one called Heisenberg, which I also very, very much like. And I also started dropping my strength down. This is a 6 milligrams instead of the 8 compared to what we started on. And this progression of finding new liquids is something which everyone does, and I can't say that my liquids will be as the right ones for you. Everybody finds different liquids that they like, and this is one which I am particularly very like. This is a company called Drip Drop, and this is actually the banana milkshake flavour. And I very much like the liquids from Drip Drop. They're a very, very good company. I originally found them on eBay, and although it is actually against the rules to list nicotine ones, they created their own website, which I will put up here when I realise how to do it. And I really like their liquids. Some of them are absolutely fantastic. Like they do a orange Tic Tac flavour, which is absolutely brilliant. I cannot say how much I like that liquid. Whereas I'm not as keen on the banana milkshake. That's why there's quite a bit left. And I have had that liquid for quite a little while. Now this is one of the newer ones which I have bought from Drip Drop, and this is one of the premium range. This is the blue slush flavour, and this is actually 3 milligrams rather than the 6 which I just showed you. And this is one of the premium lines, and this is absolutely fantastic. This is actually what I've got in this mod at the moment, although it is starting to run low, so I will actually fill that up. And this liquid, I can smoke it for a week and not get tired of it. It's absolutely fantastic. The flavour is brilliant, and I also really like the idea that it is blue slush. That's one of the things which I really enjoy. And again, this liquid, it is the time when I found that I wasn't smoking anymore. This is the liquid which actually stopped me from smoking. And it's not to say that there aren't other brilliant liquids out there. I actually started smoking one of this. This is actually a school bottle, and it doesn't actually say what it is on it. But this is the box for it. This is Eco Vape White Poison. And I really enjoy this liquid. Again, this is 6 milligrams because I couldn't find it in a 3. Although they do produce it in a 3. The shop which I used didn't have it in stock. And this liquid is absolutely, it's one of the best ones I've found. And then I found that they also do their own version of blue slush. Again, this is Eco Vape. And this liquid I've found to be the nicest one that I have found. I haven't smoked that many varieties of different liquids. I've shown you a couple there, but that's not all of them. And Eco Vape is probably my favourite. That and the Drip Drop ones, as I really enjoy smoking both of them. I will put an annotation again when I figure out how to up here of Eco Vape's website, and they are brilliant. They are an expensive liquid, but they are very good. They're more expensive than things like the Drip Drop liquid, which are also very good. And I wouldn't rate one of them higher than the other. So in conclusion, that's how I stopped smoking, and I wasn't actually meaning to. I actually just pick up this rather than having a cigarette now. I much prefer it, and it's a lot healthier for me. Admittedly, it does still have nicotine in it, which again, eventually I will put myself on a 0 milligram liquid of nicotine, as nicotine is actually a poison as well, which a lot of people don't know. So that's my setup, and this is my way of having it. Oh, this mod is the Joytech VTC Mini, just so you did know that, because I think I missed saying that out of the video. So I use the UL Crown and the VTC Mini, and that's my setup, and I love it. I will do in-depth reviews of a lot of my stuff, and I'll show you a few of the tanks in different videos. And I hope this actually made a difference, and you actually listened to what I've said, and it helps you to give up smoking. Even if you start out on something as simple as this little device, and you can also get these with a variable voltage on the bottom, and you twist it. I think it's the Ego Twist or something like that, and they're a very cheap starters mod. And if you started that and you thought, yeah, it's okay, but I'd like something a little bit better, move up like I did. I didn't stop smoking instantly. I used it and I thought it's okay. I still prefer smoking, but I did it, and I did it gradually by moving up. And I wouldn't actually recommend just going out and buying something like this. This is actually quite a bit more money than the starter kit, as you can imagine. But I wouldn't recommend going out and buying it straight away, because if you don't enjoy it and you didn't like the starter kit to begin with, maybe that's not the way that you want to give up smoking. Maybe you want to cut down using patches or something along them lines. I mean, I know that they do a little white vaporizer from a lot of healthcare centres, and some people have quit using them. Good on them. But this is the way that I found worked for me. And that's about all I have to say about it, to be honest. I much prefer using my vaporizer to smoking a cigarette, and that people can smoke in front of me or right next to me, and I don't feel the urge to have a cigarette. I'd much rather pull this out of my pocket and smoke this rather than having a cigarette, which is absolutely fantastic in my eyes. The smell of a cigarette doesn't put me off smoking. I still, I can admit that I enjoyed smoking for the nearly 12 years that I did it. But this is where I'm at now, and I don't regret it one bit. It is the best thing that I've ever bought. It does save a lot of money. A lot of people think, oh yeah, well, I'm not smoking that much. I might smoke 20 in 2 days, let's say, so it's 10 a day. Well, that's still £20 over, 4 days. It's basically £10 a packet at this point, and soon it will be £10 a packet, because all of them, the cheaper brands, only put about 17 in the packets now. And when they do go up to 20 in a packet again, they will put the prices up. So it'll only move towards what you pay for 20 cigarettes anyway. So it's still £5 a day, which is a lot of money when you could just cut that out. And yes, liquids do cost, but that's my only expense at this point, because I have everything that I need in this mod. This mod still uses a single 18650 battery, which I'm actually using an AWT battery in this at the moment, which is one which I just had spare at the time to do this review. But I do usually use the FS purple batteries. I'm not saying that the other batteries aren't good, it's just that I did a lot of research, and at the time they was the best batteries, the FS purple. They might not be now, but that's what I knew about at the time. So again, I will do a review on a lot of my mods that I have talked about during this, and I will do a review on a couple of the tanks. And I want to start doing this more often. I want to start sharing what I like about vaping and why I find it a lot better than smoking. Because I think it's one of them things where if you don't know about it, then you'll probably never try it. And that's a shame, because everyone knows that smoking is bad for them. And yes, the time and proof hasn't gone into things like this. But what I've read about the liquids, they don't use anything which can be harmful except from the nicotine, which is in cigarettes anyway. That's the thing which you actually crave, not the tar and all the rubbish which goes into them. So I hope you enjoyed my little story about how I stopped smoking. It might not work for everyone, but it did work for me, and I enjoy smoking my device now. And it's a lot better for me, and I feel better about it, which is a strange thing, because I never felt bad when I was smoking. I always just thought that it was a normal thing. Whereas now I feel a lot better. I feel more energetic. I feel like I want to do things more, which is strange because I didn't ever think that cigarettes would do that to me. And that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that it actually does make a difference. Thank you very much, and I'll see you later.